Now, I don't think every movie or show needs or deserves an explainer video, but when Jordan Peele's Nope ended, the audience in my theater was pretty confused at certain portions. And then, after hearing more and more of their thoughts that seemed to have missed the point, I figured maybe this one does deserve a little bit of attention. So obviously, this is going to contain a ton of spoilers. So if you're only looking for a review of Nope, I've linked my spoiler-free review in the description below and then up in one of these corners. Now, I don't assume to have all of the answers, so that's why I would love for you to join me in the conversation in the comments below. Now, these are my thoughts and theories, but I also want to hear yours. So let's start with the opening scene and the horrifying aftermath of Gordy the Chimp going ham on his co-stars. This seemed to be a huge area of confusion for those in my theater, and so many of them felt like it was just disjointed or not even connected outside of the tie to Steven Yeun's Ricky. And I mean, I'll get to him a little bit more in a minute. Now, I believe the largest portion of the socialist commentary contained within this movie focuses on the subjugation and control that's exerted over those who are seen as lesser. Gordy is an animal, made to do the bidding of his handlers, and in this case, perform for entertainment. But what we see in this is the uncontrollable nature of an indomitable spirit. When something is oppressed, it rises and shows strength so it's not overtaken. And when threatened, a fight comes. So Gordy is controlled and oppressed. I mean, he's literally a trained monkey. But when the balloons pop, his fear takes over and he fights. Good gravy, the mayhem and the violence that ensues because he felt threatened was just intense. And I'm so glad that I was not on that set. Gosh. Okay, but why do they show that? Well, we get to understand the aggression that comes, and then the lessons that can, or maybe should, be learned from Gordy's rampage. Ricky is the sole survivor. But why? Not because he hid under the table. I mean, sure, that could have spared him initially, but what really saved him from being monkey mauled is that he hides his eyes. He shows deference and doesn't stare back. He refuses to look at the spectacle before him. Now, looking in the eyes can be taken as a sign of aggression, and because Ricky looks away, the anger in Gordy is subdued. Gordy doesn't destroy Ricky, but instead offers a fist bump showing that order had been restored. But Gordy's power and control still remain because of the fear that's been established. I mean, at least until somebody intervenes and then removes that threat and Gordy's head. And that's a massive parallel to what we see later in the film. But here's the thing. Ricky grows up, and then while still carrying the trauma of Gordy with him, he didn't really learn the lessons that he was supposed to. As an adult, he tries to manipulate and control the being in the sky for profit and entertainment, just like the showrunners did on that ill-fated TV show. Ricky's exploiting the situation, taking advantage of the opportunity, but it ends up killing him. When confronted with the spectacle in the sky, that entity that he's trying to subjugate and control by offering up horses for dinner, well, Ricky is engulfed by what he sees. This time he doesn't look away in deference. He doesn't shield his eyes, which is then taken as a sign of aggression, and the entity does not respond well to perceived threats. Ricky pays the ultimate price for the spectacle that he creates and the respect that he doesn't give. So then we've got the entity in the sky that Ricky is trying to exploit. I mean, it looks like a parachutey sand dollar. But what we learn is that it's an apex predator that devours and destroys anything that it feels is challenging or threatening its status and supposed authority. Now, it sees the valley as its domain. It is the overseer and therefore in charge of all that occupy the valley. Now, it's not a coincidence that the entity is white. It's also not a coincidence that Daniel Kaluuya, Keke Palmer, Brandon Perea, and Steven Yeun are not white. And it's not a coincidence that the inflatable tube people are all the colors of the rainbow, but not white. It's not a coincidence that the white alien chases after, devours, and destroys anything it feels is a threat to its existence. Does that sound familiar? Well, there are literally stories of this in the news all the time. Okay, so I digress. Daniel Kaluuya as OJ is the first to understand how threatened the alien is by eye contact. So many times we watch OJ turn his head and then look down in a submissive and fearful way, and it's mirroring how white slave owners would instill fear in their slaves. I think the most visceral moment is when OJ is in the truck during that massive rainstorm, and then he opens the door just slightly to look out. Now, after he closes the door, he has this terrified look of somebody who is not allowed to look at something. Slaves couldn't look their oppressors in the eye, or else they would incur the wrath for not being submissive. And they weren't seen as equals, so how dare they even make eye contact with those that are ordained as their rulers? And if you can't tell, that's massive sarcasm. I don't want there to be any sort of confusion that I subscribe to the thought that white people are, or even ever were, superior. So Kaluuya is powerful in his portrayal. I mean, his quiet and reserve show a restraint that becomes necessary for survival. But we also see how OJ's not happy with how he has to behave. He does it to not be devoured in that moment, but he can't and then won't continue to live in that fear. When OJ grabs up the string of colorful flags and then he rides away, in one sense he's saving the flags by pulling them with him. But then when the alien devours that culmination of all the flags together, and then the takeaway from that is that the flags represent people of color, the alien can't subdue their combined presence. Through this, we watch the pursuit take place as OJ rides off being chased down by the alien, and the oppressor moves to destroy that uprising. The white oppressor is strong and instills terror as it devours and destroys. But when confronted with the united mass of those that it seeks to destroy, it shows the weakness that's been there all along, and it can't continue winning. One rising up against the oppressor doesn't stand nearly as good a chance of success as when a group rises up. The alien has been hiding in the clouds, but overseeing everything. It's taking it all in as the master of the valley. Now it has to hide though, because some of the fear comes from the unknown, but knowing that you are also being watched. And there's never a reprieve, and devastation and destruction, they're always a possibility. The fear is what keeps those being oppressed from taking action, but when they finally had enough, the revolt is worth the risk because they can't continue to live that way. When the alien is threatened in the final act and it begins to transform, we watch it get larger and larger in its posturing. And we see this in animals as a threatening stance, warning others to stay away or to submit. And we saw this with Gordy as well when he mauled everybody. And the alien, as the white oppressor, unfurls itself more and more, opening up and then threatening OJ with its giant box-like sucker thing. Now, Jordan Peele has talked about spectacle in some of his interviews. He sees it as a human flaw where people have the need to be looked upon, or it's our need to observe. We also have this need to monetize spectacle. I mean, think about it. Keke Palmer wants to be the center of attention, promoting her own business over the family one. Steven Yeun was the spectacle and now wants to create a spectacle of his own. He exploits it, but he pays the price. So what is it about human nature that draws us to spectacle? Now, I want to address when a spectacle becomes a bad miracle. OJ says that to Emerald, that it's a bad miracle. So referencing the Bible verse that's shown at the start of the movie, Nahum 3:6, I will throw filth at you and treat you with contempt and make you a spectacle. Gordy's the spectacle. The alien is the spectacle. They're treated with contempt as objects whose function is to serve our whims or make us money. And it's also kind of like slavery, right? So when we get to the climactic action, the alien is defeated by those it subjugated and attempted to destroy. I think this shows that for as much posturing and puffing up as the oppressor does, and as destructive really as it can be, when those that are under its oppression fight back, they realize that they have the ability to conquer and regain what was theirs. All right, so that's what I got. I'm sure when I see Nope again, I will have even more thoughts. But let's have the discussion in the comments. What did I get right? More importantly, what did I get wrong? I really want to hear all of your thoughts and theories, because when we all share our ideas together, we can get an even greater understanding for the film, and then hopefully a greater appreciation as well. If you enjoyed this, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.